AITA for secretly protecting my assets after overhearing my wife planning to ruin me? Hey everyone. I've followed these forums for a long time and never imagined I'd one day have something to share here. But life takes strange turns, and I've been carrying this for months. I need to get this off my chest. To be clear, I'm not the type to imagine infidelity with every delay or create wild theories. My wife, I'll call her Lauren, and I were together for 6 years, married for 4. Everything seemed solid, or so I believed. We had our ups and downs like any couple, but nothing that screamed major problem. Most of the time, we were the kind of couple everyone said just worked. We laughed at silly jokes only we understood. We argued over trivial things like what to watch on Netflix. And we had a chemistry that flowed easily. She would plan thoughtful weekend getaways, and I would come home with her favorite takeout after a tough day. It seemed simple. It felt right, like we had figured out how love works. So, when everything started to change, it felt like taking a punch. This began about 6 months ago. At first, it was small details, things you ignore and don't pay much attention to. She started keeping her phone glued to her side. Even to go to the bathroom or do simple things around the house, the phone went with her. Before, she used to leave her phone lying around anywhere and didn't care if someone saw the screen. One day I joked, "What's up? Are you running a secret operation now?" She laughed and said her work Slack was blowing up. So far, so good. But a few days later, she put a passcode on her phone. That caught my attention because she had never used one before. When I asked about it casually, she mentioned something about privacy and online security concerns. I didn't press it. I didn't want to seem overly suspicious, but it got weird and didn't stop there. Then she started leaving the room to answer calls. Before, she would answer in front of me without a problem. Now the phone would ring. She'd say, "I'll be right back. This will be quick," and go into the bedroom or out onto the patio. When I asked who it was, she'd reply, "Just people from work." Something else started to bother me. She stopped leaving her phone screen up. I didn't even know that was a sign of anything until one day I reached for something near her, and she quickly snatched the phone away as if protecting it. It was just for a second, but it stuck in my head. And it wasn't just the phone. She grew distant. Our conversations, which used to be light, started to feel forced. When I talked about our plans, our anniversary trip, getting a new car, or saving up money, she'd reply, "We'll see about that later," and change the subject. Everything became clearer one day when she said she was going for coffee with a friend. I was nearby running errands and thought, I'll surprise her. It'll be nice. But when I got there, she wasn't with any friend. She was pacing back and forth in front of the coffee shop, phone to her ear, with a tense look on her face. I stayed in my car. Something told me this wasn't simple. I didn't want to listen, but I caught bits and pieces of the conversation. Things like, "It's almost ready. We'll start over soon." A knot formed in my stomach. I didn't understand exactly what it was, but it didn't sound like a work problem or a friend's gossip. It sounded like a plan, something big. When she got home, I asked how coffee was, acting natural. She told me a long story about her friend, about venting, about a bad relationship. She spoke with such ease that I just stared at her for a second, not knowing what to say. Then she brought up consolidating our finances. "We should organize everything in one place," she said. "Accounts, passwords, documents, in case of an emergency." "An emergency like what?" I asked, trying to sound calm. She shrugged. "I don't know. In case something happens to one of us. Or we need to make a big decision quickly." The explanation made sense, but the way she said it didn't. It seemed rehearsed, too perfect. I replied, "Yeah, that makes sense." But inside, something was screaming. Why now? Why the sudden rush to move money around when we'd always been relaxed about it? That night, I kept replaying everything. The secrecy with the phone, the conversation at the coffee shop, the coldness. It all fit into a picture I didn't want to see. Still, I didn't do anything yet. A few days later, she brought up the topic again. We were in the kitchen, and I was making a sandwich. She was on her phone when she said, "Have you thought about organizing the bank stuff? Do you know where all our account information is?" I put the knife in the sink and turned to her. "Is something going on?" I asked in a firm but calm voice. "You've been focused on money lately." She looked up, surprised that I was so direct. "No, nothing," she replied quickly, forcing a laugh. "I just think it's smart for emergencies." "Emergencies like what?" I insisted. She shrugged without expression. I don't know. Life is unpredictable. Her answer was so slippery, so vague. I nodded and let it go, but that only increased my unease. It no longer sounded like a casual suggestion. It sounded like someone hiding something, and I had no idea what it was. The next day, while she was at work, I decided to review our finances. I logged into our joint bank account and noticed something odd. Over the last month, there had been several small transfers. Nothing huge, but amounts that didn't match our bills, normal purchases, or fixed expenses. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but it looked like she was quietly moving money around for some reason I didn't understand. I thought about confronting her, but I held back. If I was wrong, I would look paranoid. If I was right, I needed to act carefully. This wouldn't leave my mind. So, I called a buddy from college whom I trust a lot, who is now a lawyer. I explained everything, trying not to sound crazy. I'm not saying there's definitely something going on, he said. But you're not crazy for wanting to protect yourself. If you're unsure, act now. Better safe than sorry. He explained the simple steps to protect my assets if things went south. It seemed extreme. It was like preparing for a disaster I didn't even know was coming. But the more I thought about it, the more sense it made. If she was planning something, and I was starting to believe she was, I needed to protect myself. It wasn't an easy decision. It wasn't just about the money. It was about our whole life. I remembered our wedding, the late-night talks about the future, the silly jokes only we understood. How did we get to this point? Taking these actions was like admitting the trust was gone. That night, while she was out, I opened my laptop with trembling hands. I opened everything. Bank accounts, investment portfolios, documents for the house. Every file I looked at felt like a betrayal, but a voice in my head kept repeating that this was survival, not revenge. I didn't want to hurt her. I just couldn't ignore the feeling that I would regret it if I did nothing. I wrote down everything that could be transferred and how to do it without raising suspicion. As I worked, guilt and determination fought inside me. I had trusted her for years, and now I was defending myself from the person I thought would be by my side forever. Afterward, I called my mom without going into detail. I need you to hold on to some things for me, I told her. It's nothing serious, just a precaution. She was silent for a second, understanding what I wasn't saying. Are you okay? Her voice was full of concern. Yes, I lied. Just being careful. She didn't press, but I could feel the worry on the other end of the line. Of course, son, whatever you need. When I hung up, I felt a mix of guilt and relief. I hated involving her, but knowing I wasn't alone made me more resolute. When Lauren got home, I had already started the process. I transferred the majority of what was mine, savings, investments, the title to the house, into a legal trust in my mom's name. I left enough money in our joint account to avoid suspicion. The rest was secure. She didn't notice a thing. She came in, gave me a quick kiss, and asked if I wanted to watch a movie. I acted normal, but inside, I was in turmoil. Part of me felt like a traitor. Another part felt like I had finally taken control of a situation that was spiraling out of my hands. In the following days, I continued to pretend everything was normal. I didn't want her to suspect anything. She seemed calm, sometimes even overly cheerful, but that, instead of calming me, made me more suspicious. If she was plotting something, she was hiding it very well. What caught my attention was that she never mentioned money again after I confronted her. The topic simply vanished. At first, I thought maybe I had overreacted and she had dropped it because it wasn't important. But the more I thought about it, the more it seemed deliberate, as if she was avoiding the topic after I had called her out. I caught her looking at me several times, as if gauging my mood, deciding whether to speak or not. She would always look away quickly, turning back to her phone, the TV, or a book. It was subtle, but it was there. It seemed like she was waiting for me to bring up the topic, testing the waters without exposing herself. The silence only made me more tense. She was never one to easily let go of something she wanted. This avoidance seemed calculated. If she was planning something, I wasn't going to give her an opening. Whatever her next move was, I needed to be ahead of it. Something was brewing, but I didn't know when or how. The only thing I could do was prepare. That night, I reviewed everything again. I checked every document, making sure the transfers into the trust were done correctly and legally. The house, the savings, the investments, all protected in a solid, loophole-free trust. I even called my mom to confirm she had received all the paperwork. 2 weeks passed, and everything seemed normal, too normal to be honest. She suddenly became affectionate, bringing up silly topics about work, dinner, and simple plans. This confused me because for months she had been cold, avoiding any deep conversation. A part of me started to wonder if I had misunderstood everything. Maybe her strange behavior was just stress or something I hadn't noticed. But one Friday night, she sat next to me on the sofa, turned off the TV, and said, "We need to talk." A knot formed in my stomach. I already knew what was coming before she spoke. "I think we should get a divorce," she said with a calmness that felt rehearsed. There was no anger, no tears, it was cold. As if reading from a script, she began to explain. She talked about space, about finding herself again, about having lost who she was within the marriage. These were canned phrases that didn't really explain anything, until she said something that hurt differently. "I gave up so many things for you, and you never valued it. I deserve more." That cut deep. It wasn't just that she wanted to leave. It was the way she placed the blame on me, as if I owed her, as if she were just collecting what was rightfully hers. As I tried to process it, one question wouldn't leave my mind. "Why now?" Then she dropped it. "A friend has been helping me see things more clearly." A friend. She avoided my gaze when she said it. I stayed calm. I let her talk, but inside, my mind was racing. Who was this friend? Why was someone from the outside so involved in our marriage? The way she said it didn't sound like a casual chat. It sounded like someone had coached her, as if leaving me wasn't just a choice, but a strategy. And the more she talked about her sacrifices and how she deserved something better, the more suspicious I became. Sacrifices? What sacrifices? She always said she was happy with me. I worked hard to give her the life she wanted, and it wasn't just about money. When she wanted to live closer to her job, I agreed, even though it added an hour to my commute every day. When she wanted that expensive wellness retreat in Sedona last year, I gave up a trip I wanted so she could go. I supported 2 of her career changes. I encouraged her to take risks because I wanted to see her fulfilled. I wasn't an absent husband. I was present. I remembered important dates and the little things she liked. When she seemed down, I'd suggest going out or doing something different. I listened when she complained about work, friends, or family. I wasn't perfect, but I tried. That's why "I deserve more than what I have" didn't ring true. She wasn't unhappy because of me. Something or someone had changed her mind. Maybe this friend, maybe something else, but the woman in front of me was not the same one I married, and I wasn't going to let her rewrite our history to fit her new narrative. In that moment, I didn't argue. I just nodded and said something neutral, like, "If that's what you want, we'll figure out the next steps." She was surprised I didn't beg or argue, but I didn't care about that anymore. My focus had shifted. I needed to find out who or what was behind this cold, calculated change. She hadn't just decided to leave. This was planned. After that conversation, she moved out. On Monday, I was served with divorce papers, and it wasn't just to end the marriage. She wanted half the house, my savings, my assets, and the car. She wanted everything. She even included some strange alimony clauses, even though she earned a good living. It seemed she thought she was going to walk away with everything I had built. At first, I thought it was just anger or revenge, but the highly organized nature of her demands convinced me someone was coaching her. So, I started digging. I couldn't just ask who she was talking to. I took a smarter approach. I went on her social media. She hadn't blocked me, though she posted infrequently. I went through tagged photos, comments, everything. There, I noticed a pattern. A guy named Miles liked and commented on almost everything. Nothing scandalous, but enough to catch my eye. I went to his profile. It was public. A normal-looking guy in his 30s who worked in marketing. But looking closer, I saw something strange. He had posted a photo at the same coffee shop where I saw her weeks before. On the same day, I overheard her talking about starting over. My stomach churned. I kept looking for more small signs. A comment of his on her photo saying, "Looking great," and a selfie of hers that looked like it was taken in the new apartment she was living in. It wasn't concrete proof, but it was more than enough to set off all the alarms. I didn't know exactly what to do with it, but I knew I couldn't stand still. The friend helping line wouldn't leave my head. I needed to know who it was. I reached out to a mutual friend, Sienna, who had been close to Lauren for years. I spoke casually, asking if she had talked to Lauren lately or noticed anything strange. Sienna immediately shut down. She said she didn't know about any friend or anything different. I pressed a little, but she became defensive and cut the call short, saying she couldn't help. It was all very quick, like she was running from the topic. I didn't give up. I called another friend, Carly. I used the same approach, saying I just wanted to understand what was happening. At first, she gave vague answers. When I pressed further, she hung up on me. That only made me more suspicious. A few minutes later, to my surprise, Carly called back. She said she needed to be sure it wouldn't come back to her. I promised it wouldn't. After a long silence, she told me. According to her, Lauren had been spending a lot of time with a guy from work named Miles. Carly didn't know everything, but she had heard that Miles was heavily involved in the divorce advice Lauren was getting. Hearing that name was like fitting the last piece of the puzzle into place. It wasn't just about finding herself or needing space. Someone was guiding her, and I was going to find out why. I decided to handle it my way. The following Saturday, I parked a block away from her apartment, wanting to confirm what I already suspected. A few hours later, she and Miles came out together. They weren't kissing or holding hands, but their closeness, the way they spoke so near to each other, said it all. They got into his car and drove off, leaving me staring at the empty street. I didn't follow them. I didn't need to. It was clear she hadn't simply fallen out of love with me. She was planning a new life with someone else, and everything started to make sense. The distance, the questions about money, the divorce petition full of demands. She wasn't just leaving. She wanted to leave me with nothing, and she had helped to do it. I went home that night with my head spinning. The betrayal hurt. But what hurt more was knowing it had all been premeditated. She was using the divorce as a springboard into this new life with Miles, but she had no idea I had prepared for it. The first mediation session started off heavy. Her lawyer arrived with a thick folder, looking like he was from a big downtown firm. He began listing her demands as if they were standard. Half the house, my savings, my assets, the car, and even nonsensical alimony, despite her good income. I stayed silent, waiting for my lawyer to act. When our turn came, he placed a stack of papers on the table and said, "Before we continue, everyone should review this." Her lawyer started looking through the documents, and the confident smile quickly vanished from his face. "What is this?" he asked, looking at my lawyer. "This shows the transfer of all major assets into a legal, irrevocable trust in my client's mother's name," my lawyer replied calmly. "The transfers were made weeks before the divorce filing, and the trust is legally sound and fully executed." The room fell silent. Her lawyer looked at her sharply. "You didn't mention this," he said curtly. She grabbed the papers, scanning them quickly, her face turning red. "This can't be true," she said, seeing the notarized signatures and the dates. Then she turned to me, her expression shifting from shock to rage. "You planned this," she yelled. "You knew I was going to ask for a divorce, and you set this all up to destroy me." I didn't respond. I let her put the pieces together herself. Her lawyer, visibly shaken, asked mine for an explanation, and he calmly explained, step by step, with all the documents proving the transfers were solid. The dates showed I had moved everything before she filed. The signatures were notarized, the trust untouchable. They had no leverage. She was furious. "You're unbelievable," she said, leaning forward. "I can't believe you did this to me." I remained silent. This wasn't about hurting her. It was about protecting myself, because she had made it clear she wasn't playing fair. The meeting ended with her lawyer saying he needed to reassess his strategy, but everyone knew they were out of options. In the hallway, she pulled me aside, her face a mix of rage and panic. "This isn't over," she said in a low voice. "You're going to regret this." I looked at her and said, "My only regret is ever trusting you." After that, everything spiraled out of control quickly. She went into total desperation mode. It started with nonstop calls. At first, she left tearful messages. "Can't we talk? I know this turned into a huge mess, but we can fix it." When I didn't respond, the tone changed. By the second day, the messages shifted from crying to rage. One moment she'd be weeping, saying she made a mistake and didn't want to lose what we had. The next, she'd be calling me cold and selfish, saying I had ruined her life. I ignored it all. My lawyer advised me not to respond, and I didn't want to anyway. I was done with her games. But she wasn't. When calls and messages didn't work, she started making up stories. Friends began telling me she was telling people the divorce was just a big misunderstanding. In some circles, She even claimed the whole thing had been a performance. A performance? Who would believe that? Her story fell apart quickly. People asked, if it was a performance, why file legal papers? Why ask for so much money if it wasn't serious? When no one bought the performance version, she changed her tune. She said it had been a test to see the strength of our marriage. She portrayed herself as the victim, saying I had betrayed her, that I had broken her trust. At first, some people even believed her. I received strange messages, like, I didn't know things were that bad for her. Even her sister spoke harshly to me. You could have just talked instead of going so far. It was annoying, but I knew the truth would come out. And it did, through a mutual acquaintance. Let's call him Tristan. Tristan and I weren't close, but we were on good terms. A few weeks after the mediation, he messaged me saying he had something I needed to see. When we met, he showed me messages between Lauren and Miles. I was baffled. How did you get these? I asked, scrolling through them. Tristan explained that he and Miles had a mutual friend who had overheard several conversations between them. This friend grew concerned when he heard Miles bragging about how he was helping Lauren secure her future. It didn't take long for him to understand that securing her future meant leaving me with nothing. With a heavy conscience, this friend sent screenshots to Tristan, knowing he could let me know. That guy is using her, Tristan said, shaking his head. He's pushing her to take everything from you, promising he'll be with her afterward. Tristan handed me his phone and said, you didn't deserve this. The messages were damning. Lauren wasn't just venting to Miles about the divorce. She was planning her next steps with him, and he was coaching her through it all. One message from her read, after the settlement comes through, we'll have what we need. We just need him to sign. Miles replied, hang in there. Make him feel guilty if you have to. He owes you. Once you get the money, we'll start fresh. I stared at it, trying to digest it. This wasn't emotional confusion or desperation. It was a premeditated betrayal. I thanked Tristan, and he left, but my mind was racing. It all made sense now. Her withdrawal, her focus on money, the divorce filled with demands. It was all part of a plan she had crafted with Miles. The messages spread quickly among our friends. Tristan showed them to a few people, and soon everyone knew. Her story lost all credibility. People who had been neutral or on her side started to distance themselves. Even her closest friends began to disappear. When the divorce was finalized, she was left with only her personal belongings. Her lawyer dropped the demands because there was no longer any legal basis for them. My documents and the trust held firm. Miles disappeared as soon as her plan fell apart. I wouldn't be surprised if he had used her just as much as she tried to use me. From what I saw, he filled her head with dreams of freedom and a new life. But when it became clear she wasn't going to get anything, he vanished. Without Miles, her confidence collapsed. The calls and messages continued, but the tone changed. She no longer accused me. She was pleading. One message read, can't we talk? I'll do anything to fix this. Another, you don't have to forgive me, but can't we resolve this and move on? I'll drop everything if you just talk to me. I didn't respond. I couldn't. The damage was done. Even her family started to pull away. Her sister called me once to apologize for having believed Lauren's version of events. I didn't know what she was doing to you, she said. Forgive me for believing her. As for me, I was left with the house, my savings, and something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. My mom, as always, was my rock. She showed up with cans of paint and new ideas, wanting to help me make the house feel like mine again. Now, life feels like my own again, without analyzing every word, every gesture, without betrayal. Just calm. She is a closed chapter, one I will never reread. Comment. I wanted to share this story because it carries a powerful reminder for all of us. Sometimes the quiet voice inside you is the one you need to listen to most. Protecting your peace isn't selfish. It's an act of deep self-respect. Even in difficult situations, you always have the choice to respond with dignity. True strength comes from taking responsibility for your own healing and happiness. Being kind to yourself, especially during hard times, is often the first step toward moving forward. Choosing peace over conflict is a victory in itself. Remember, healing is a journey, not a destination, and every step forward matters. I hope you always find the courage to build a life that feels safe and true to you. Take care of yourselves, and take care of one another. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.